us the fruit of the Jesus. Saint Vincent de Ferrer, Saint Jude, Lady Victory, Lady Sorrows, Lady Alpha Christians, Saint Ignatius, God, the Son, Holy Ghost. So one last actual example of the modernist system and how powerful it is in our heads today. We're going back to those two principles. I just had them erased from the board. No man ever does anything extraordinary. And every man does things for his own personal self-interest. And there's a third corollary, the principle that's behind that, which is self-interest betters society. This is the principle of survival of the fittest. Remember, the survival of the fittest means that whenever I do what's best for me, and I kill the weak, and I overpower them, that's not selfishness. That's bettering society. Because then the strong will survive, the weak will cease, the smart will survive, the stupid will go away, the good will persevere, and the bad will be wiped out. So when I am selfish, I am bettering all of mankind. This is a principle that is deep in our culture today, and it's modernism. Very deep in our culture. We call it the theology of selfishness. The theology of selfishness is one of the teachings of the modernists. Remember, modernism equals evolution. If I take care of me, the world becomes a better place. And this is deep in our blood. This is one reason why it's so difficult for us to build a true resistance against modernism, and why it's so difficult to build Christendom again. Because the soldiers we're building with are interested only in themselves. That's the essence of modernism. The problem is this: selfishness is a normal sin and temptation that we all have. I know we're not supposed to be selfish. We're supposed to share and share alike. But there's only one beer left, and I don't know where it is. And when you're not around, I might be drinking it. But the fact is, I know that that's not right. But the theology of selfishness is infinitely more vicious than that. In the theology of selfishness, I must save that beer for me in order for you to progress in the world. I have to do this. I've had several emergency volunteers tell me these things. The famous case in France, well, I won't go through the whole story, I don't have time. But nonetheless, it boils down to is my beloved brothers in the Philippines. I put them on the side of the road in France because our beloved French bus driver, there was a drop of rain. We're pretty sure there was a drop of rain, but we're not 100% sure there was a drop of rain. A drop of rain hit the windshield. The windshield wipers didn't work on the bus. He pulled over and parked the bus on a major exit ramp. He said, I'm not driving because it's against regulations to drive in the rain. My windshield wipers don't work. And I said, look, do you see any clouds? No. There was a drop of rain hit the windshield. Are you wet? No. Look, there's no rain. Drive your stinking bus across the road. I got 60 people on the bus. There's a restaurant across the road, we can give them dinner. No. So he refused. So we had to walk the people across the road. And told the brothers, my beloved brothers from the Philippines, yeah, because this was in France in 2008, and we were going to the Lord's pilgrimage when we had 25,000 people there. So we were on the way there. We said, now stop the traffic. But the brothers were, guess what? We're hungry. And there was I sent a guy from New Zealand who was I think New Zealand or Australia, I don't forget now, who was a fireman. I said, you go with him. Guess what? He was also hungry. So I went to the bus, I grabbed the people, and I sent them out, and where are the brothers? Where is the fireman? They're not there. So then I had to get them across the road. We almost got a couple of ladies almost got run over by 70 mile an hour, moving in vehicles exiting the ramp. We got everybody across the line. I went in and said, what the heck are you doing? He says, you know what we learned in fireman school? If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. And so we wanted to help those people, but if we didn't have the energy and we didn't have the strength, we couldn't help them anyway. So we had to strengthen ourselves in order to go out and help them. And that's what they really said. So, in any case, now, the problem we have today is that people really think that. That's the theology of selfishness, which is a teaching of modernism, a teaching of evolution. It's very deep. We have the problem today that when people believe the truth, they believe the truth, the external doctrine, but the reason for the truth is wrong. And the engine behind it is wrong, and hence they lose power. Last example before going to the solution, which is the example, unfortunately, that's to deal with in our resistance of Bishop Williamson. It's a more easy example of how this modernism works. What's the principle? No man can do the extraordinary. In this very place at a priest meeting a couple years ago, well, 2012 I guess it was, 5 years ago now, Bishop Williamson preached a retreat. We had a meeting of about 13 priests. We had a big discussion down at the house there, big argument. And in the discussion, Bishop Williamson said, primum vivere diende theologizare. So there's a principle of the old Romans. Primum vivere diende philosophi. Doesn't matter. If you can't read it, you've got problems reading. Okay. Philosophi. First to live, then philosophize. So if you don't have life, you're not going to philosophize. In fact, no one, the reality is you first philosophize and then you live. Proof is suicide. Those people that can no longer philosophize a good reason to live, guess what they do? They commit suicide. This principle of the Romans is a lie. This principle of Romans is false. Bishop Williamson, in our argument, he discussed, he said, primum vivere deinde theologizare, which is a modification of the principle. First live, then theologize. No man can do the extraordinary. We had it in our argument. He said it multiple times. No man is obliged to do the impossible. If you can't live as a priest within the society and you don't have a place to go and you have no priory, no family, no faithful, then you're just going to have to stay within the society and wait for better times. This is what our argument was about back in 2012. You can theologize all you want. Bishop Fillet is wrong, modernism is bad, heresy is bad, but first you have to live. Just to make this very clear, this is a bunch of garbage. Okay? It's crap. Alright? Not true at all. The fact is, we must first theologize, we must first philosophize, and life will then happen. Theology is first. Philosophy is first. A man that doesn't have a reason to live commits suicide. We first philosophize, we first reason, we first theologize. Modernists know that very well. They promote this principle, primum vivere diende philosophare, in order to kill your brains, in order to kill your hearts, to kill your drive, to make you into sheep who will follow a wicked shepherd. That's why they do it. So he says, you know, that no man ever does the extraordinary. No man ever does extraordinary. Our teacher, our master, our creator, our Lord said, you must love one another as I have loved you. And as St. Thomas points out, and the fathers of the church, this is a requirement of the New Testament. It is an obligation for all of us. Now, what did Christ do? He loved the unlovable. He loved those that hated him. Remember he said, do good to those that hate you. Love the unlovable. This is called impossible by modern man. Not just modern man, but any kind of carnal man or man of sin. We are taught by our Father, we are taught by our ancestors, we must love our enemies, we must do the extraordinary in order to go to heaven. This is necessary. One of the powers of modernism since it's a system, when the system gets inside of you, your engine can no longer become a saint. Your engine can no longer drive towards heaven. It's killed the engine. Killed how your whole body and your whole soul works. And we have to destroy it and rip it out. And my great teacher, who lived on this property, used to teach me at the desk that's upstairs. He was the same desk we teach in the seminarian. It was Paul Haig. And, you know, that in fact, it happened to me right here in that little building over there in the school building downstairs where the Ticals are staying, where my new Mexicans are staying, both the old Mexicans and the other Mexicans. We were surrounded by Mexicans. In that very place, when I was about 13 or 14 years old, one of the many times in which the electricity went out for 3 or 4 days. And I used to milk the goats at 5:30 in the morning in the barn over there. I used to raise goats. And so we were studying. Miss Haig she's a great lover of St. Thomas, really great knowledge of the faith, and a doctorate in literature, and also in St. Thomas Aquinas, in Summa. And she in fact, when I first met her, I was 9 years old. And we were walking down the road. I was 8 or 9. We were walking down the road here. She said, well, St. Thomas says, who's St. Thomas? You don't know St. Thomas! So I was 8 years old, and I didn't know St. Thomas in the Summa. She about killed me. How can you not know St. Thomas? You're already 8! I'm sorry. So she told me that she about had a heart attack that I didn't know St. Thomas in the Summa at the age of 8. So a few years later, we were in the school there, in that building, and we were studying something. I think it was actually literature, and I remember it was a true actual experience. That I remember the light, because the electricity was out, and we had the those little filament, oil lamps things. We had that, and then we were studying something under the oil lamp at 4:30 in the morning, and I could actually feel a physical change. That the love of truth just entered into my being. It just entered. I could feel an actual physical entrance into my heart of the love of truth. And so Ms. Egg died just last year, and I owe very much a love of truth to her, and an understanding also of the great Catholic vision, which is the answer to modernism. It is the answer to the whole era of the modern world. And one thing that Ms. Haig used to point out as a child, over here in this little school building, she used to point out, remember that the modernists and the enemies of God have a complete vision. They have a total worldview. They know what everything is about, and they know what their purpose is. They know what they're about. The problem with a Catholic, he doesn't know what the world is about. He doesn't have a Catholic vision. He doesn't see the beauty of the universe that God made. He doesn't see the structure of it. He doesn't see the wonder of it. Therefore, he cannot answer the modernists. Partial answers will not work. There must be a complete answer. And to try to summarize that, we say that there's a little principle. All things, we just put in one principle, all things are connected in one hierarchy. Distinct, but not completely separate. Try and put it in one statement. What is diaboline? It's interesting also, we're noticing the change in modern man. This principle people are beginning to get. The devil wants them to get this principle, but he wants them to get this principle because now they're going to have to realize there's only one answer to science, there's only one answer to religion, there's only one answer to economics, there's only one answer to politics and everything else, and that's going to be the Antichrist, Satan, and the New World Order. Now we're on the demonic side of this principle. But the truth is, All things are connected in only one hierarchy. They are distinct, but they are not completely separate. This is Christendom. The devil spent the last 700 years ripping apart and separating the various truths and the various things, separating church and state, separating Christ the King, Christ the prophet, Christ the priest, separating scripture and tradition, separating families, separating kingdoms, separating fathers and mothers, separating children, now separating the very union between man and woman with homosexuality, making a new replacement, ripping apart every single thing. This is the devil. Innocent III, in his encyclical on the devil, oh my goodness, can't think of the name of it now, that he says, what is witchcraft? Witchcraft, he says, is not an old lady looking into a crystal ball. It's not a palm reader. These are false witchcraft, which make you think a woman on a broom, somebody casting spells, that it's a stupid, idiotic, bad, but foolish thing. That's part of the deception, says Innocent III. That's not witchcraft. That is not witchcraft at all. Witchcraft, he defines, the ordered destruction of all order. What is witchcraft? We're at the end of witchcraft right now. It's the ordered destruction of all order. Not some order, not religious order, all order. We know that if the devils could right now, they would rip apart our fingers and our toes and rip out our hair, rip out our eyes, destroy everything God created. The devil has a desire to destroy everything. He cannot do it, showing how limited the power of Satan is. He wants to destroy the trees. He wants to destroy every ant. He wants to destroy every planet, every star, every molecule in the universe. And physically, in his angelic power, he has the power to do it. He's held back by the power of God. I think it's the dominations, or the angels, who hold back. They hold back. Or it's the powers. One of the list of the 9 angels again. Maybe it's the powers that hold back. The powers hold back the devil. They cannot do these things. But it's an ordered destruction of all order. One of the points of the popes, every time we're into a heresy, what's the order behind this disorder? If you just have disordered destruction, destruction is not complete. An example of ordered destruction, bombs placed into a World Trade Center in such a way that it falls down in 10 seconds. That requires order. If you just had a fire, only part of it would fall down, many people would survive, etc. Ordered destruction, controlled demolition. We must understand the world we are in 2017 is a controlled demolition world with bombs planted all over this entire world, ready for the devil to push the little button and the whole thing to collapse. The ordered disorder. That's what we're dealing with. What's going to be the answer? We must recognize that all things are connected in one true hierarchy, distinct but not completely separate. Everything is connected in one hierarchy. There is a hierarchy and a beauty of being. At the very top is God. The very bottom is something we call prime matter. And we could say underneath, nothing. Below God, the angels. Below the angels, men. Below men, the animals. And then plants. And then the non-living things. First of all, the non-living things are divided into 2 parts. The non-living of the heavens. The non-living of the earth. Non-living of the heavens, stars, planets. Non-living of the earth, rocks, etc. Right? Rocks and minerals. And then prime matter. And as the seminarians memorize, we go back to it continuously in all the classes. This is the hierarchy of being. How many hierarchies are there? One. Every one of us fits in this hierarchy. The middle creature that has all the hierarchy in him is man. He is called by the ancients the one who is in Middle Earth. Why is he in the middle? Because he's the one who is like unto the angels. Remember, there are billions and billions of angels. He is like unto the angels because he is spirit. He is like unto the animals because he has feeling and sensation. He is like unto the plants because he grows. He is like unto the stars. And he is like unto the earth in his non-living parts. For instance, we notice modern scientists have proven, for instance, man's likeness to the stars. We human beings are affected by the movement of the stars. The signs of the zodiac. If you're born in the wrong month, you're just weird. That's January, February, March, April, May, June, and September, and October, November, December, and July. You're weird. So, the fact is, if you're born in the wrong month, you're just plain weird. We are affected by the stars. Modern scientists, for instance, have learned that our bodies, we thought that our bodies moved by the sun, which we call the solar day. They don't. Day and night for us is the sidereal day. Our bodies note the movements of the stars, and we consider day and night according to the movement of the stars. So we're affected by the stars. We're affected by the rocks. We are connected to the stars, connected to rocks, and underneath everything is this thing called prime matter. We won't worry about the philosophy class here. So, and these beings will notice there is a degree of being. Plato recognized a degree of being. Everybody is. But they're not the same size. Everyone has being. Mount Everest has being. An ant has being. But do they have the same degree of being? Being is. How much is do we have? There is the one that is pure is. God equals pure is. Or pure act. Everything else is a participation in is. Metaphysics is the study of the word is, the most important of the sciences. Participation is. Now, those things, is pure act, and then down here we have matter, which is called pure potency. Pure potency is something which is, we know it is real, we deal with it every day. I'll quickly just prove its existence, and we're not going to talk about it, because the fact is that pure potency, prime matter is something only understood perfectly by God. Nothing to make it perfectly understand. We know it exists, we deal with it every day, but we can't comprehend it. It's a pure movement, pure potency, and yet it cannot be by itself. It can only be in things, in material things. And so man, animals, all the way down the line. Prime matter is in all material things. But it's close to nothing. Angels are close to God. Understanding this, the principle to understanding the universe. What is more immaterial, he is, let's say this, God equals most immaterial. The correct word is spiritual, but we don't want to use that word because we didn't think of spirituality, right? Right? It's something, saying prayers and being holy. That's not what it means. Spiritual simply means not physical. That's all it means. It doesn't mean holy. So we use the word immaterial to make it clear. So he's most immaterial. And Mount Everest equals most material. So here's one of our principles of reality. The more material something is, the closer it is to nothing. The more immaterial a thing is, the closer it is to God. A thing that is more immaterial is more real than a thing that is material. Hence, the greatest activity of man is the immaterial activity of knowing. That's the greatest activity of man. It's the most important thing that he does. He knows. And then St. Thomas points out, this is rest. The purpose of all action is rest. So we've got to understand, against the modernists, there is one united and complete and whole universe. And guess what? God created the angels out of nothing. Animals and plants, stars and earth out of nothing. His glory. Every aspect of our lives no outside world and spirit inside world, no spiritual world and real world, like the Protestants were the first ones to point out. One thing we say about modernism, without Protestantism, none of the modern world could be. But now the Protestants are so much better than the people today that we call them good. It's like calling Lucifer good because Beelzebub just got a bad attitude. Well, the fact is that Protestantism is the mother, father, progenitor of every modern evil. Paganism's been around forever. It did not create the wickedness of the modern world. It took Protestantism to make it. Without Protestantism, there's no modernism. Without Protestantism, there's no liberalism, there's none of this. There is a form of it amongst all the pagans, yes there is, but not to the degree of wickedness, the degree of evil that is found in our world, because it took a Catholic corrupting his faith in order to take these evils of Satan and destroy the whole world. Protestantism, which we don't have time to go into, is the father of all this, the Protestant Revolution. There is one complete harmonious universe, and it all matters what's in it. Hence, it matters about Charles Darwin and evolution. It matters about Galileo and the sun and the earth being the earth being the center of the universe and the sun. It's interesting what's his name? Nietzsche. Nietzsche talks about it. The enemies always know well. Listen to your enemies. Nietzsche talked about it. The man that went mad. Madman went with a lantern into the streets at noonday. And he says, what happened to God? He said, we have killed him, you and I. What happened to God? And what happened to our earth since we unchained it from the sun? What happened to it? The earth started spinning through the universe and we all started spinning. We got unchained. We unchained the earth. And it's all spinning through the universe. And since that time we've gone mad. And now we have killed God. And he says, we've killed God, you and I. We've killed God. It's not a long passage, you should have had it, but don't have it. We've killed God, you and I. Must we not make ourselves gods to be worthy of the crime? He recognized that when Galileo came, he changed history. Faust does the same thing. When Galileo changed history, well, what did he do? He destroyed our view of the heavens. He separated us from the earth. The earth and the heavens and their materiality became the world of the scientist. And the religion was left to the other things. And then we were cut off from the plants, cut off from the animals, cut off from non-religious men. And as modernism continues, eventually all religion is wiped out. Now it's cut off from morality. Religion is cut off from morality. The angels cease to exist because they are beyond the phenomena. It took time to reach all these points, to the destruction of each level of society. Now, the fact is that if you believe that the earth is the center of the universe, it's interesting that it's changing now. It is changing now. But especially a few years ago, if you believe the earth is the center of the universe, you're just completely nuts. Because science has proven. It hasn't proven anything. but we believe science has proven. Think about that. Why do you believe that? The reason is because you read it in the science book, which says that Teresa has 2 mommies and Ralph has 2 daddies and doesn't believe in God and lies about everything else. But there it's true. We believe in the authority of the science book over the authority of Christ and the popes and the church. We've accepted their way of thinking. Robertson Jennis, for instance, is now a modern Catholic fighting against the problems of Galileo, but he's a modernist. He's not a threat. He has a big, beautiful 3-volume book. It's really good. It's got all the facts in it. Good at putting together facts of how Galileo was wrong and the church was right. But what does he say? You realize Pope John Paul II never really exonerated Galileo's teaching, and it's true, he didn't. You realize the church said it was infallible. It seems he's now making a documentary that is infallible. Well, it was really infallible. We looked like it was infallible back in 1616, but we don't really know because whatever the church says today is what matters. And in order to prove that Galileo was wrong, we're going to focus only on the scientific arguments of scientific authorities, such as, what's that idiot, Einstein and Hubble and these other guys. So they quote Einstein, quote Hubble, and he's a good example. He's holding the correct, true conclusion in this particular point, and it's a complete waste of time. He's holding the true conclusion. Galileo is wrong. Galileo is the heretic. Galileo, the Dominican theologian that reported him in 1615, when he came to the biblical commission and to the Inquisition, he said, these people say that things are not what they seem to be. We see the sun rise and set. We see no imperfections in its movements. Our eyes are infallible. These say things are not what they seem to be, and they mock Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas. If this continues, it will be the end of Christianity, the end of Christendom. He was right, but he was focused on the theology and the philosophy of the problem. Robertson Jennis and many others, for instance, the Protestants, good Protestants, they condemn the evolutionists. Why? Because science proves evolution wrong. Use this scientist against that scientist. Robertson Jennis condemns Galileo, which is good. Why? Because new scientific discoveries have shown that Galileo is wrong. Does that fit transfiguration, disfiguration? We used to know that Galileo was right. It turns out that we now know Galileo was wrong. Because science has proven Galileo wrong, because they got the new WMAP satellite, which shows very clearly that the Earth is the absolute center of the universe, and that the whole universe tilts 23 degrees and a half north and south above the Earth. We didn't know that before. Don't you know that Galileo was right? What's the problem with that? Galileo was wrong and the Pope was right. Correct conclusion. Completely evil and wrong. Why? Because we don't believe because of a simple faith. We don't believe because it's what the fathers of the church teach. We don't believe because it's the teaching that when St. Barbara Bellarmine burnt Bruno at the stake, probably it was important. We don't believe because the church teaches it, because sacred scripture teaches it, because the fathers teach it, and because God cannot lie. We don't believe because of that. We believe because it turns out we checked on God. He was telling the truth again. Isn't that encouraging? You checked on God. Turned out he was telling the truth again. Who's God going to whack first? Excuse me, Mr. Satanist. I'm busy right now. Who's he going to whack first? The Satanist? Or the good guy that's defending him and with Satan as his authority? This is a deception. It's a deception. Robertson is a good man, means well, but unfortunately, he's playing in the hands of the modernists. That's why he's into the new mass and all those modern things. We have to follow whatever the authority says. The authority says the new mass is not bad, so I got to accept that. And if you look at the authority, and many Catholics in tradition make this mistake. My brother used to get mad about that all the time, Father Tim. They say, you know, Vatican II was not infallible. It never said the infallible words. Who cares? Vatican II says something different than what was taught before, therefore it's wrong. We don't need to go into the technicalities. While it is also true the technicalities are there, that Paul VI didn't use his fullness of authority. He didn't. That's true. The new Mass is not properly legally promulgated. That's true. I am not against the new Mass because it wasn't properly legally promulgated. That's not why I'm against it. We're against it because it's different than what our fathers have done. We're against it because it's promoting error and heresy, and it leads souls to hell. That's why we're against it. We're not against it because authority didn't use his technical power. So what we have today is a very serious problem. Catholics are standing for the truth for the wrong reasons. And hence, they cannot defeat Satan. One thing that we're noticing in the modern generation, we're finding amongst the new generation, which is definitely not a very impressive generation, the most depressed generation that we have. We're finding amongst the new generation, they're willing to accept the whole truth. The older generations are not. And they're willing to accept, all right, if God is God, I accept whatever God teaches. I accept whatever God says. And if he says Einstein is a nut, I've seen the picture. He looks like a nut. Probably is. So the fact is they're not attached to Einstein. They're not attached to Vatican II. They're not attached to these evil demonic figures that the older generation has made into saints. We're told we're saints. So on the negative side, they have the thinking of these people without these mentors. But on the positive side, we're like in a new age. One of the things I wanted to consider giving in this conference on modernism, but we didn't make it, is actually part taken from Father Ribicher, former priest of the Society of St. Peter. Unfortunately, he's on the wrong side of the fence, but he is now a priest of the Diocese of Tulsa, Arizona. I mean Tulsa, what did I say? Arizona, Oklahoma. And he's an exorcist. And he had a talk, interesting talk a little while ago on the 6 demons, or the generations of the demons of each generation. Going back to what's called the Lost Generation, which is 100 years ago, World War I, 1905 to 1925. The next generation called the Greatest Generation, 25 to 45. Then the Baby Boomers, 45 to 65. And then the Generation X, and Y, and then the new present generation. And millennials in the present generation. And that we're not going through all the devils, but he says we've reached now, there's a devil for each generation, general spirit of each generation. When you get to this generation, which he calls the 6th generation, what is the devil of this generation? He says there are 2 devils. 1, paganism. 2, depravity. Without going through the whole consideration, paganism and depravity. What we mean by that is, not every single person in the generation is affected by these devils, but they are the general course of the generation. So, in our time, for instance, paganism. What's one of the signs of paganism? Tattoos. We see amongst pagan cultures, they have tattoos. They always have put on tattoos, always symbols some religious, usually with regard to some demons. But it's just normal to have tattoos. Sticks in your, in your mouth. We see in India, they stick a post through the mouth, coming out the other side. When they go on pilgrimages, it's not like our pilgrimages. You don't want to be near these pilgrimages. When you see those men, what's interesting about India, though, which is a good thing, women originally are not allowed to go on pilgrimages. Only men, because it's worship to the gods, and it's the man that is responsible for worship. Women stay home. Only men on the pilgrimages. And they cut themselves, and they have tattoos, and they put spears through their mouth and noses, right? We see these things as signs of paganism. Guess what people are doing nowadays? Like the other week I said, this earring you can park a truck in, right? And I don't know how you could stretch the skin that far. And then people with the girl with the stick sticking to the nose, this 40-inch stick sticking through half the nose. I don't know how they do it. And then of course the tattoos are everywhere. The point of Father Imager is that this is becoming normal. There's pagans in every generation. And depravity has become normal. Mommy and daddy, well, they're not together, of course. Everybody just sleeps around and they live a completely immoral life. We're in an age of paganism and depravity. Now, these pagans that are depraved are the kind of people that the devil wants in order for the Antichrist to come and rule them. When they become normal. Christianity is gone. I've noticed myself in the last couple of years. I remember, you can always see, when you walk through an airport or walk through a street, you can see my guy's eyes. Protestant, not Catholic, Muslim, they always look like they're straight from hell. Muslim, Hindu, looks like he's kind of lost. They got the pagan eyes, lost eyes. In India, for instance, you can see right away, Catholic, Hindu, Muslim. Bang, 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 right? It doesn't matter about the beard, just look at the eyes, right? Catholic, Hindu, Muslim. And so, but now what's happening is that we're noticing pagan eyes, lost eyes. They don't know what they're about. What are you? I'm a Catholic. I was baptized. I believe in Jesus. But they don't know who he is. First time I ran into this was actually when I was a newly ordained priest. So 20 years ago, 22, 23 years ago. And I went to a base. My parish in Denver was in Fort. I was in the base down there in Colorado Springs, Air Force Base. Walking on the base, and about 15, 20 kids came around to see fly. And we started talking about Christ. Not one of them knew who Jesus Christ was. Not one was a Muslim. One or two said, my family's atheist. Most of them were Catholic or Protestant. They knew nothing about Christ. One kid said, yeah, I heard the name a lot because that's what my dad says when he's really mad. Now, they were not being bad. They were just part of a new generation. They don't know anything about Christ. This is paganism. We have to understand where we are. That's what Miss Hague used to always get angry about with us traditional Catholics. So you guys are living in the past. It's true that the sins of one age are not the same as the sins of another age. For instance, the age of independence is gone. If you think your kids are independent, why are they exactly like every other kid? Why the kids aren't rebelling like they used to? We used to do healthy things like break windows and climb up, go out and throw firecrackers and wholesome stuff. But now kids don't know how to do that. They don't know how to rebel. They don't even know normal rebellion because they're trained to be automatons and do exactly what they're told. Lego Corporation reported on that 20 years ago, the late 1990s, early 2000s. They used to make Legos that were just little blocks and sticks and plastic things, and people would they just give it to kids and they'll invent something. They realized kids couldn't invent anything anymore. So they started making plans, pictures of toy spaceship. This is your Darth Vader, the X-Wing fighter, and etc. And then to make it exact, and the kids could do it to match the pictures, but they couldn't use their imagination. The ability to use imagination, the ability to actually rebel, even these things, which are not always good, modern generation has lost. Why is that? Because this generation is being prepared for the Antichrist. And there's a generation of paganism and depravity, where depravity is just normal. They just fool around. They're having marital relations before they're teenagers. They are living immoral lives. They see no problem with homosexuality. They talk about it in school when they're 7 years old, 8 years old. They live in complete depravity, and it's just normal to them. They're not immoral. They're just depraved. The devil of this generation. And they're pagans. And we have here this entire, the whole New World Order is ready to go into them. How are we going to defeat them? We have to recognize we're dealing with people that are in complete ignorance, under the control of Satan. And the answer is give them the whole picture. Give them the whole of Christ. This universe is beautiful. This universe is united. This universe is made by the good God, and every part of it is ruled by Him, and He's totally in control. And He is going to have His great victory, and the devil is going to be wiped out. And you must accept all the truths of the church. And the church has the right to say where the earth is and where the sun is, because that's what God told us in the beginning. In the beginning He created the heavens and the earth, which means the earth is not in the heavens. It's not in the heavens. And He created day and darkness and light. He created the world in 6 days. On the seventh day He rested. He made this the pattern of time. After 1,656 years after He created the world, He wiped it out by water and cleansed the earth of sin. And then He created a rainbow in the sky. So that when you see the rainbow, it is a reminder to all humanity that He will never destroy the world by water again. And He made Noah to do what He told Adam to do. Take your sons, Sem, Ham, and Japheth, and go and people the earth, and subdue it, and rule it, and make it be all used for My glory. And this is what the world is about. The whole universe, every pagan religion, Hinduism, all the so-called ancient religions, they are all corruptions of the most ancient of all religions, which is the true religion of our Holy Mother Church. The first pope of our church was Adam. The last pope will be Peter II. And Christ's true church reigns from the very beginning of time, from Adam until the end of the world. And God rules from the Alpha unto the Omega. And He has victory over all His enemies, and there will not be any exceptions. And we're 15 minutes late. But in any case, there won't be any exceptions. So there is an order to this society, and there's one complete united harmony: moral theology, dogmatic theology, philosophy, all of the sciences, canon law. All these sciences are all connected and together. They each have a part to play in our learning and education, but we are all connected in one hierarchy. No one science can ever contradict another, and God is in control of all things, supernatural and natural. In any case, we'll close here, and we'll take a little 5-minute break again, and I'll give Father the final hurrah here before lunch. So we'll just say a quick prayer. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost. Saint Vincent Ferrer, Saint Jude, Lady of Victory, Lady of Sorrows, the Apple Christians, Saint Ignatius, Father.